Hey guys, this is a PowerPoint about Fahrenheit 451, and it's going to introduce the book and the author. The author is Ray Bradbury. He was born in 1920 and lived until 2012. He is known as a fantasy and horror author, and he rejected being known as a science fiction author, although most of his works of literature are considered science fiction. He is really working on fantastical and unreal novels and short stories where he usually talks about a futuristic world, and his stories always have a deeper meaning. In Fahrenheit 451, it is a dystopian study of a future American society where critical thought is outlawed. Bradbury won the Pulitzer Prize in 2004. The text that we're going to read is a dystopian novel, meaning that it is a world in which you would not want to live. It is sort of a cautionary tale about future America if books and critical thinking were outlawed. So in this society, firemen burn books. Instead of putting out fires, they start fires. This book is a allegory for the McCarthy era, and here's a video that's going to explain more what the McCarthy era is. But basically from the 1940s to the 1950s, there was a governor, Joseph McCarthy senator, from Wisconsin, and he was worried about communism coming into the Senate. So he was basically if anyone was acting weird or, didn't do what he liked, he would kind of throw out there that they may be communists, and it's defamation of character. It's also like a witch hunt, which we've seen happen a lot of times in society. So here's a little video that's going to explain that further.
Mass hysteria. We've all seen it. From Black Friday lines wrapped around Best Buy to the pandemonium of shootings in public places, mass hysteria is not just for the history books. One word triggered such a hysterical outbreak that hundreds of innocent people had their lives shattered in these United States during the 1950s. That word? McCarthyism. Named after Republican Senator Joseph McCarthy, the term is defined as the political practice of publicizing accusations of disloyalty or subversion with insufficient regard to evidence. McCarthy's issue of choice? Communism. Communism, in simple terms, is an economic system designed to equally benefit everyone in a society. Communist systems are generally controlled by dictators and totalitarian governments, and gained a hold in Eastern Europe and China after World War II. Americans were increasingly concerned that it may be happening in their own backyard as well. McCarthy took advantage of this mounting fear, but as being a communist isn't technically illegal, he started charging people with the act of subversion, the systematic attempt to overthrow or undermine a government or political system by persons working from within. During a highly controversial speech in 1950, he waved around a list of 205 names of supposed active communists holding jobs in the State Department. McCarthy was a relatively unknown junior senator at the time, but once he lit the fire under America's fear of communism, there seemed to be no stopping him. McCarthy then embarked on what is often described as a witch hunt to root out and prosecute communists and sympathizers. Using a variety of channels, such as severe intimidation and the threat of prison, McCarthy identified suspected communists and supporters, usually with little to no evidence. Suspect names were released publicly, resulting in defamation of character, guilt by association, and irreversibly damaging careers and reputations. When all was said and done, however, there were no convictions for subversion. The American people became aware of McCarthy's brutal methods through the McCarthy making accusations against Army officers for not answering questions about their political beliefs. McCarthy went too far when he interviewed Brigadier General Ralph Zwicker, a decorated veteran and hero in Normandy, calling him a disgrace to the uniform he wore. Joseph Welch, the Attorney General for the United States Army, responded famously by saying,
Look, you've done enough. Have you no sense of decency, sir? At long last, have you left no sense of decency?
The public and President Eisenhower agreed with Welch and quickly changed his opinion of the man who had insulted members of the armed forces. In 1954, the Senate censured McCarthy on 2 charges for abuse of legislative powers. He remained in office, but was left with virtually no power or clout. McCarthy died at age 48 on May 2, 1957, of acute hepatitis, which resulted from alcohol abuse. Some believe that McCarthy may have in fact been a crusader against communism in a country that wasn't taking a tough enough approach on it. But most remembered him as violating the civil liberties of too many innocent people, and his reckless bully reputation has stuck. When the Senate hearing transcripts were released in 1995, Senator Susan Collins said, "We hope that the excesses of McCarthyism will serve as a cautionary tale for future generations. Only time will tell if this will be the case."
Okay, and so with McCarthyism, we're going to see a parallel in Fahrenheit 451, where our society is going to be calling out people who are different and maybe don't fit in with the norm for this society, and also government control, and kind of if you don't follow the rules, you don't get to have a nice life. So, we're going to be noticing the characters who do not want to conform, and you're going to be able to see a parallel to McCarthyism in the text, because Bradbury's deeper message to his audience is saying, hey, here's a warning. Don't let people take away your critical thinking. You know, your knowledge is your power, and what's in books can change your life and help you solve the world's problems, maybe. The next slide is the dystopia, and we talked about how that's a society that's undesirable, often frightening, and that this picture, I think, does a really good job of showing what this futuristic world in the book we're going to start is. People standing around watching books being burned. An allegory is a literary device in which characters or events in the text are representing different ideas or concepts. So, our book stands for more than just the story. It shows us about a time within McCarthyism. It shows us a warning of technology coming into play, because this was written in the 1950s when television sets were a huge deal and people stopped reading. So this is sort of one of those books that teaches us some lessons about what if. The setting is in America. It is in the future, and its books are banned from society. Coercion is the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats. So within McCarthyism, we saw how the senator was threatening people who maybe he thought were suspicious of communism. We will see this in our book by some of the firefighters going into homes where they feel the owner may have books. Remember, the theme is the main message or takeaway from the text. It's what the reader is to learn. There are different themes in this text. Some that we're going to be looking out for is conformity versus individuality, censorship, distraction versus happiness, action versus inaction, knowledge is power, government control is bad. There's just lots of different themes throughout this text, so I'm hoping as we read, you'll be able to point some of those out to me. Symbolism is a symbol is something that represents more than its literal meaning. This is something that has a deeper meaning. So for instance, a book in our text is going to stand for more than just a book. Fahrenheit 451 stands for the temperature at which paper burns. So there's going to be different objects in our book that will be representing more than themselves. So we'll be talking about those in class. Okay, so this is your PowerPoint for the beginning of Fahrenheit 451, and I'm really excited to start it. It's one of my favorite books. I think the biggest thing I want you to know is that even though it was written in the 1950s, a lot of the issues stand true today, and I've never been able to connect the world I live in to a book more clear than this book. I see parallels, connections, and different things that are represented in Fahrenheit 451 that we see every day in our society, and I'm really excited for us to start reading the book. So that is our PowerPoint for today, and we will start the book next week. Thank you.